On the morning of August 12, 2025, the city of Austin, Texas, was rocked by a devastating act of violence at one of its most reputable recreational facilities, the Lone Star Shooting Club, a well-known and heavily frequented target shooting range that has, for years, stood as a bastion of gun safety and education, a place where firearm enthusiasts from diverse backgrounds gathered to hone their skills, socialize, and enjoy responsible use of their weapons under the watchful eyes of trained staff and strict safety protocols. However, on this fateful Saturday, what was supposed to be a routine day of practice and leisure turned into a nightmare for the patrons and staff present, as a man described by eyewitnesses as being in his early 30s, wearing a dark green tactical vest layered over a simple black shirt, paired with blue jeans, a consistent outfit throughout the event, abruptly transformed from a calm participant into a deadly assailant, opening fire indiscriminately in the main shooting hall, the first gunshots ringing out sharply at approximately 10:15 a.m., shattering the usual atmosphere of concentration and camaraderie that had filled the range only moments earlier. The initial moments of the shooting were marked by utter confusion and terror. Patrons, some accompanied by family members, instantly ducked for cover behind bulletproof barriers, counters, and walls, while others, in a desperate bid to help those who were wounded, scrambled to provide first aid or call emergency services on their phones amidst the chaos. Multiple witnesses later described the suspect's behavior as eerily sudden. He had arrived early that morning, practiced quietly and without incident for some time, but then, without any discernible trigger or interaction with other range users, drew a semi-automatic rifle from a concealed case and began firing rapidly into the crowd. As the situation escalated, the sound of gunfire reverberated through the facility, prompting several visitors to flee the premises in panic, some running to nearby parking lots or adjacent buildings for safety. Emergency calls flooded into the Austin Police Department, who dispatched units immediately. Responding officers arrived within minutes, securing the perimeter and entering the building with tactical teams prepared for an active shooter scenario. The swift response and preparedness of law enforcement prevented further casualties, as officers confronted the suspect in the main hall, where a brief but intense standoff ensued. After a tense negotiation, the man was subdued and taken into custody without the use of lethal force. Tragically, 3 victims, a woman and 2 men, all between the ages of 28 and 35, were found deceased at the scene, their injuries sustained from multiple gunshots. Several others were transported to local hospitals with injuries ranging from critical to moderate, receiving emergency medical care. The identities of the deceased were withheld initially to allow notification of next of kin. However, community leaders later shared that all 3 were known locally as law-abiding, peaceful individuals with no known connection to the suspect. Authorities have since launched a full-scale investigation into the incident, which includes analyzing surveillance footage from the range's security cameras, interviewing survivors and staff, and conducting a thorough background check on the suspect. Early findings revealed that while the suspect had some prior minor legal encounters related to nonviolent offenses, he had no known history of violent crime or explicit threats towards others. Nevertheless, investigators are examining possible motives, including mental health issues, personal grievances, or ideological beliefs. Though no clear motive has been publicly confirmed as of yet, the shooting has left the Austin community shaken, sparking an outpouring of grief and solidarity from residents, local officials, and national leaders alike. Vigils and memorial services are being organized in honor of the victims, while support services, including counseling and financial aid, are being offered to survivors and families impacted by the tragedy. The incident has also reignited contentious debates surrounding gun laws, mental health support, and safety protocols at shooting ranges and other public venues in Texas and across the United States. Local government officials have pledged to review existing policies to ensure that safety measures are both adequate and effectively enforced, aiming to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Media coverage has extensively documented the unfolding story, capturing the emotional aftermath as well as the ongoing investigative efforts. The Austin Police Department has appealed for anyone with additional information or footage related to the shooting to come forward and assist with the inquiry. As the investigation continues, questions remain about how a person could turn a place designed for responsible firearm use into a scene of such devastation, underscoring the complex intersection of gun rights, public safety, and community well-being. This first part of the story captures the immediate facts of the event, the response by emergency services, and the early stages of community healing, setting the foundation for a detailed exploration of the suspect's background, victim profiles, law enforcement actions, and societal implications in the parts to follow. Following the immediate chaos and tragedy at the Lone Star Shooting Club in Austin, as emergency responders secured the scene and began treating the wounded, the investigation swiftly transitioned from crisis management to a painstaking search for answers, with law enforcement officials, forensic teams, and intelligence units collaborating to piece together the suspect's background, motive, and the precise sequence of events that led to such a violent outbreak in what was supposed to be a secure and controlled environment. Within hours of the shooting, the Austin Police Department released preliminary information indicating that the suspect, a male in his early 30s who was dressed in a dark green tactical vest, black shirt, and blue jeans, was taken into custody, unharmed during the incident, and was currently being held for questioning. Although authorities remained tight-lipped about the suspect's identity pending official charges and family notification, detectives pored over hours of surveillance footage from the shooting range, reviewing the suspect's movements from the moment he arrived on the premises, noting that he had initially behaved calmly and engaged in target practice without incident, raising baffling questions about what might have triggered the sudden and brutal attack. Witness interviews played a critical role in reconstructing the timeline, with patrons describing how the suspect's demeanor shifted noticeably moments before the shooting, some recalling subtle signs of agitation such as pacing, muttering to himself, or scanning the crowd in a manner that felt uneasy. Employees of the shooting club, many of whom had undergone extensive training in firearm safety and crisis response, described the moment the shots rang out as surreal and devastating, emphasizing the difficulty of reacting instantly in a setting where firearms are normally handled with utmost caution and respect. Investigators also scrutinized the suspect's digital footprint, analyzing social media profiles, online forums, and messaging apps for any clues or warning signs of radicalization, personal struggles, or grievances that could have foreshadowed the attack. But initial findings indicated no overt manifesto or declaration of intent, leaving experts and authorities searching for deeper psychological or situational causes. Mental health professionals consulted during the investigation suggested that sudden acts of violence in otherwise ordinary individuals often involve a complex interplay of stress, untreated mental illness, social isolation, and sometimes access to firearms without sufficient oversight. Meanwhile, the families of the victims began grappling with unbearable grief, the shock compounded by the randomness and senselessness of the violence, while community leaders and local government officials moved quickly to organize support systems, including counseling services, financial assistance, and community vigils aimed at both honoring the deceased and fostering healing among survivors and witnesses. City officials publicly acknowledged the profound impact on Austin's sense of security and the urgent need to revisit policies governing public firearm facilities, signaling potential legislative reviews and increased funding for mental health initiatives. The shooting also reignited national conversations on gun control and public safety, with advocacy groups on all sides leveraging the tragedy to press for stricter background checks, better mental health screenings, and enhanced security measures at shooting ranges and other public venues where firearms are present. Media coverage remained extensive, with news crews stationed outside the shooting club and hospitals, interviewing witnesses, law enforcement officials, and community members, while also respecting the privacy of those directly affected. The ongoing investigation included a multi-agency task force combining the efforts of local police, state investigators, and federal agencies to ensure a thorough and coordinated approach, recognizing the potential complexities, including possible connections, to wider criminal or ideological networks. Forensics teams meticulously cataloged and analyzed physical evidence collected from the scene, including spent shell casings, ballistic trajectories, and fingerprints, to build an accurate picture of the incident and to prepare a robust legal case against the suspect. Law enforcement also worked to dispel misinformation and rumors circulating on social media, urging the public to rely on verified information and to report any credible tips that might assist in understanding the motives and preventing future tragedies. Amidst the unfolding investigation, the community's response was marked by resilience and solidarity, with neighbors organizing neighborhood watches, prayer groups, and public forums focused on violence prevention and healing. Experts in crisis management highlighted the importance of long-term support and community engagement to address the trauma experienced by those directly and indirectly affected by the shooting. As the suspect remained in custody, legal experts anticipated a complex and highly scrutinized judicial process, one that would examine not only the facts of the shooting but also the wider societal issues it touched upon, including gun legislation, mental health care, and public safety measures. This second part of the Austin Target shooting incident chronicles the unfolding investigation, witness testimonies, community and governmental responses, and the growing national discourse on preventing similar tragedies, setting the stage for deeper insight into the suspect's history, the victims' stories, and the evolving public policy debates to be explored in the following parts. As the investigation into the tragic Austin Target shooting deepened, law enforcement officials began to uncover more details about the suspect's background, personal life, and possible motivations, revealing a complex portrait of a man whose outward demeanor masked a series of struggles that may have contributed to the violent outburst at the Lone Star Shooting Club. The suspect, consistently described as wearing a dark green tactical vest, black shirt, and blue jeans throughout the incident, was identified as a resident of the Austin metropolitan area with a history that included previous encounters with law enforcement over minor offenses but no documented history of violence or extremist behavior. Interviews with neighbors, former colleagues, and acquaintances painted a picture of a somewhat isolated individual who had recently exhibited signs of emotional distress, including withdrawal from social circles, mood swings, and occasional outbursts of anger, though none suggested that he was capable of the lethal violence witnessed on that fateful morning. Investigators learned that the suspect had been employed sporadically over the past few years, holding short-term jobs that ranged from warehouse work to freelance technical support, with no steady employment or clear career path, which some friends said had contributed to his frustration and feelings of instability. Further probing into the suspect's digital life uncovered a mix of interests in firearms, tactical gear, and survivalist literature, common among many gun enthusiasts, but also raising questions about possible influences that may have fed into his mindset before the attack. Authorities also reviewed communications and social media activity, but found no direct threats or manifestos, leading to speculation that the attack might have been spontaneous or driven by internal turmoil rather than organized ideology. Mental health professionals brought in to consult on the case emphasized the challenges of identifying potential threats when individuals do not leave clear signs of intent, underscoring the need for improved community outreach, early intervention, and access to mental health resources, particularly for those who are socially isolated or struggling with hidden issues. Meanwhile, the families of the victims began sharing their stories publicly, turning grief into advocacy by calling for stronger safety measures at public shooting ranges and better mental health support services to prevent future tragedies. Their heartfelt testimonies struck a chord with many across Texas and beyond, bringing human faces to the statistics and reminding the nation of the real and lasting impact of gun violence. At the shooting club itself, management expressed profound sorrow and committed to cooperating fully with investigators, while announcing plans to temporarily close the facility for a comprehensive safety audit and to provide counseling and support to employees and regular patrons traumatized by the event. Community leaders and lawmakers in Austin took swift action, holding emergency meetings to discuss policy responses, including enhanced background checks, mandatory safety courses, and improved surveillance and security protocols at gun ranges. Efforts met with both support and criticism from various stakeholders, reflecting the complex and polarized nature of gun debates in America. The media continued to follow every development closely, featuring interviews with experts on gun violence, mental health, and law enforcement practices, as well as human interest stories focusing on survivors' resilience and community solidarity. In parallel, the suspect remained in custody, undergoing psychological evaluation, while legal teams prepared for arraignment and subsequent trial, a process expected to draw significant public and media attention, given the circumstances and the broader implications. This third part of the Austin target shooting narrative delves into the suspect's personal history, community impact, policy discussions, and the continuing search for understanding and justice, weaving together the multifaceted dimensions of the tragedy and setting the groundwork for the final chapters covering the judicial process and long-term community recovery. In the weeks following the tragic shooting at the Lone Star Shooting Club in Austin, the community grappled not only with grief and loss, but also with the unfolding legal process and the broader ramifications of the incident on public safety, gun laws, and mental health awareness. The suspect, consistently seen wearing the dark green tactical vest, black shirt, and blue jeans that had become a grim symbol of the day, was formally charged with multiple counts including 3 counts of first-degree murder, several counts of attempted murder, and related firearms offenses, with prosecutors presenting a strong case based on forensic evidence, eyewitness testimony, and surveillance footage that left little doubt about the severity and premeditated nature of the attack. As the legal proceedings commenced, the accused remained in custody while undergoing psychological evaluations to assess his mental state at the time of the shooting, a process that drew significant attention from both the media and legal experts, given its potential impact on the trial's outcome. Meanwhile, victims' families faced the daunting prospect of the judicial process while seeking justice and closure, often speaking publicly about their loss and advocating for reforms to prevent such tragedies, their voices echoing across news reports and social media platforms and stirring public debate. The Lone Star Shooting Club, which had temporarily closed following the shooting, began the painstaking work of reopening with heightened security measures, including mandatory background checks, improved surveillance systems, and the introduction of trained security personnel on site, all aimed at restoring public confidence and ensuring the safety of patrons. City officials held forums and listening sessions where community members could express their fears, hopes, and demands, while mental health professionals and law enforcement leaders discussed strategies for better integrating crisis intervention and violence prevention programs into the community. At the state level, policymakers revisited legislation concerning gun sales, firearm storage requirements, and the regulation of shooting ranges, though proposals faced stiff opposition from gun rights advocates, illustrating the ongoing tension between public safety and Second Amendment protections that characterizes much of Texas's political landscape. Nationwide, the Austin shooting became a case study for experts examining patterns of mass violence, contributing to a growing body of research aimed at identifying risk factors and improving early warning systems. Media coverage remained intense, often focusing on the human stories behind the headlines, the survivors' recovery journeys, the community's resilience, and the tireless efforts of first responders and volunteers who had risked their lives on that tragic day. Meanwhile, public conversations about mental health stigma and access to care gained new urgency, with advocates calling for expanded resources and destigmatization campaigns to encourage people struggling with psychological issues to seek help. Before crises emerge, the legal case against the suspect continued to develop, with defense attorneys exploring avenues related to mental health defenses, while prosecutors prepared to argue the clear evidence of premeditation and the devastating impact on victims and the community. As the trial date approached, the city of Austin undertook a series of commemorative events honoring those lost and highlighting community unity in the face of tragedy. From memorial gardens to educational seminars on gun safety and conflict resolution, the shooting, while a moment of profound sorrow, became a catalyst for ongoing dialogue and action aimed at preventing future violence and fostering a safer, more compassionate society. This fourth installment in the Austin Target shooting story captures the legal battles, community healing, policy debates, and cultural shifts emerging in the aftermath, providing a comprehensive view of the events, wide-ranging consequences, and the long path toward justice and recovery. As the Austin community slowly embarked on the long road to healing following the horrific shooting at the Lone Star Shooting Club, the legal process surrounding the suspect, who had been consistently described as wearing a dark green tactical vest, black shirt, and blue jeans throughout the incident, progressed toward a highly anticipated trial that would not only seek to deliver justice for the victims and their families, but also provoke wider reflection on the underlying causes and consequences of gun violence in America. In the months leading up to the trial, extensive pretrial motions, psychiatric evaluations, and evidence presentations were conducted, with prosecutors detailing the chilling premeditation involved in the suspect's actions, supported by forensic, ballistics, surveillance video, and harrowing witness statements describing the moment he opened fire without warning, while defense attorneys explored potential mental health defenses, questioning whether the suspect had the capacity to fully understand or control his actions at the time. A claim met with both sympathy and skepticism from the public and legal commentators. Throughout this period, the community remained engaged and vigilant, organizing continued vigils, support groups, and advocacy campaigns focused on mental health resources, gun safety, education, and legislative reforms aimed at preventing similar tragedies from recurring, reflecting a collective determination to transform grief into meaningful change. Local schools and community centers introduced programs to address trauma and promote resilience among youth and families affected directly or indirectly by the shooting, while law enforcement agencies expanded training on crisis intervention and active shooter response based on lessons learned from the incident. The trial itself attracted widespread media attention, with courtroom proceedings broadcast live to the public, bringing the painful details of that day into homes nationwide and sparking renewed debate over the balance between individual rights and public safety. Survivors and families of the victims bravely testified, sharing their experiences and the profound emotional and physical scars left behind, contributing to a narrative that emphasized both the human cost and the urgent need for systemic solutions. After weeks of testimony, legal arguments, and expert witness presentations, the jury deliberated extensively before reaching a verdict that held the suspect fully accountable for his actions, sentencing him to multiple life terms without the possibility of parole, a decision met with relief and somber acknowledgement of the justice served. Beyond the courtroom, the community continued to grapple with the aftermath, focusing on rebuilding trust, addressing lingering trauma, and fostering a culture of safety and compassion, with local leaders encouraging open dialogue, educational initiatives, and enhanced mental health services. The Austin Target shooting tragedy ultimately became a catalyst for change, influencing policy discussions at the city, state, and national levels, with new regulations introduced to tighten security protocols at shooting ranges, improve background checks, and expand mental health funding. Researchers and advocacy groups cited the incident in ongoing studies, aimed at identifying early warning signs and effective prevention strategies for gun violence. While the wounds inflicted by the shooting will never fully heal, the resilience demonstrated by the Austin community serves as a testament to the human spirit's capacity to confront tragedy, seek justice, and work toward a safer future. This final part of the Austin Target shooting narrative concludes the legal proceedings, community recovery efforts, and the broader societal implications, emphasizing the enduring impact of the event and the ongoing journey toward healing and prevention.